this week's astrology. And this week, we're sitting in some pretty intense energy. We have Saturn conjunct Neptune, or well, they've gotten within 1 degree of each other, and we're going to be sitting in that until the 23rd of August. And it gets a little bit hotter this week because they're going to be square Jupiter, who is sitting in Gemini, in a part of Gemini called Ardra. And now Ardra is all about stormy weather. It is about emotions coming to the surface. It's like the chaos or the necessary chaos that we need in order to clear things up. Like if you think of a storm, right? We have many storms in our lives. They can be external storms that we can see, but within us, the emotional storms that come up. And the role of that kind of emotional storm that brings about tears, that brings about anger and frustration is very often to help clear something up, to help purify something that's going on in the body, something that's happening within the energy system of the body. And so storms play this really important role, and they help us make sense, address, face into what is going on and feel the reaction that we have to that. And that's really what Jupiter is forcing us to do this week, as it will perfectly be in tension with Neptune and Saturn. And Neptune and Saturn, I keep on seeing in my head, like Neptune is always this bubble, it's this liminal energy. Um, and normally when we have a big Neptune transit, it's like a bubble gets burst. We definitely had that a couple of years. I'm pretty sure it was Neptune and Jupiter when we had crypto tank. So it was like that bubble around innovation and crypto tanked, or it burst. And so in a way, having Neptune as this bubble sitting with Saturn, and Saturn represents institution, governments, hierarchy, patriarchal rule. And having Neptune sitting there, it's almost like sitting in Pisces, it's almost like bursting the energetics of that. It doesn't mean things are going to be perfect, but it feels to me like what these planets are doing together, what Jupiter is doing with its kind of like stormy energy, and Neptune and Saturn are doing together, is it's almost the way in which we're having to listen to the truth. Like Jupiter is like, this is going to be a little bit upsetting, but here's what's going on. And you can find in your personal life, but also in the collective, that you need to really hear what's going on. You need to actually feel the emotions that you're having around your life, around the way in which you restrict yourself, around the way in which you think you need to abide by a convention or a way of doing it because it's been done forever within your lineage or your family. And then on top of that, at a collective level, it feels like what's going on is there's like this ideal or this dream that we were holding on to around the way government is or the way leadership is, that Neptune is bursting, and it's being burst by Jupiter in Gemini. And Jupiter in Gemini is all about hearing the truth through citizen journalism, through social media, through the documenting of what is actually happening, being exposed to another point of view, which isn't the narrative of, say, the chosen leadership or government. Now, what I would be saying with this week is that everything we see in the collective is for our liberation. In fact, the world is set up for our realization. And it is always a macro of the micro. So, whatever we see or whatever we perceive in the broader collective will be playing out within us in some smaller way, shape, or form. So while Saturn and Neptune are sitting together, and there's this shift going on in how we understand government and how we understand rules, regulations, leadership, hierarchy, you can find that within you something is fundamentally shifting. That it's actually playing a role. What you're seeing externally is helping you understand where you have been listening to maybe rules you've created for yourself, which are outdated, which don't make sense, which abide by a convention that you really actually, well, it doesn't serve you, and maybe you've just been holding on to because that's what you grew up with or what you were told, as part of your ancestral story. So just know that. And even when things can feel tough or challenging, within them, there is always the opportunity for us to learn something about ourselves, to clear something up about ourselves, which kind of brings me back to what I was talking about with Jupiter in Ardra Nakshatra, which is actually where we're going to have the Gemini new moon coming up next week. And I'll quickly mention the Gemini new moon ritual and reading is now live. I'll put the details below. But that kind of energy of like the storm, the inner storm, the facing into emotions that we're feeling and not running from it, it serves to clean stuff up. Emotion and that inner turbulence helps us see where we're arguing with reality, where we are looking at something and we think it should be different from what it is, that our story is conflicting with the divine story, which is reality. And so when we have that inner stormy weather, which we'll have this week, it's a really big opportunity from the universe to step into greater enlightenment in our thoughts, in what we perceive as true or not true. So maybe if we thought of this week as, knowing that there'll be challenge, but knowing that within that challenge is the opportunity for understanding the truth, for seeing the ways in which we might be out of alignment with the truth that is in front of us. So if we run through the week, this is what's going on. Today, the sun enters Gemini in sidereal astrology, and it will be there till the 16th of July. Venus will be opposing the black moon Lilith. So Venus is sitting in Aries and the black moon Lilith is sitting in Libra. What this all means, it's really a day today for listening. It's a day to sit in silence if you can get some time to sit in silence. And when you're in conversation with other people, listening to what is really being said. What do they actually mean? What are they actually saying behind their words? And you can come to incredible resolution and understanding simply by not talking, simply by listening and understanding. While the sun is in Gemini, there can be a lot of overactivity with the mind, a lot of air in the body, that kind of like searching, trying to understand, trying to make sense, talking without necessarily thinking or overthinking. And so, a great way just to ground that energy is to listen, to stop and listen. Because I feel like today there's the opportunity for you to understand something in conversation that you haven't been able to grasp. Tomorrow, we've got Saturn square Jupiter. So we have the first of those tense meetings between Jupiter and Saturn, and then Jupiter will square Neptune a little later in the week. And Mercury will enter Punarvasu, which is a Nakshatra, until the 25th of June. The key to Monday, so where today is about listening, Monday is about following your own rhythm. Very much so with Jupiter squaring Saturn. It's like hearing convention, seeing what it's about, but then listening within and hearing what the beat of your drum says, how it is that you need to show up in this world, what it is that is true for you, because it can be different to what other people say or what other people or what like the media is portraying, or even if you're at work, what people think you should be doing. This is about you following what is true for you. Then we go to Tuesday. The sun is sextile Chiron. It's a really nice Tuesday in a way this week. There should be some nice relief in Tuesday, as well as in Saturday. That would be like my two picks for like easier weather this week. Tuesday, the sun is sextile Chiron. It's really a day of healing. And like physically, that might be embracing new modalities, exploring new practitioners or people or methods or theories to work with. But it can equally just be a day where you start to understand what you're healing within you, and even realizing that you're complete and perfect as you are. Really, the sun sextiling Chiron or in harmony with Chiron can help bring that about. You can find also that the mind brings to you new understandings, alternative ways of approaching old problems, and even starting to see your own healing journey in a new way. Wednesday, Thursday is kind of building on that energy. I'd be saying like there's no big conjunctions happening on Wednesday or Thursday, but based on the placement of the moon, you can find that if you haven't been able to see the bigger picture of what's been going on through this week, if you've been getting too bogged down in the detail, that it actually helps you see like the bigger plan, the bigger picture. And that can be like, from a work perspective, seeing like a bigger strategy, or from a commitment perspective, seeing the bigger picture of where your relationship might be heading. But most importantly, maybe the spiritual perspective, starting to see that it's all a divine dance, that it's all perfect, that it's all a setup for enlightenment. Thursday, the energy gets a little bit tense. We've got Jupiter square Neptune. So just as Jupiter squared Saturn earlier in the week on Monday, it will then square Neptune, which will put the pressure on it. It can really feel like that bubble is bursting, that the way you thought things were are actually not how they are, that you're seeing the truth in the situation. And it can bring up some pretty stormy emotions, but that storm will help you understand something bigger. It's actually leading you to a higher understanding, a higher knowledge, higher wisdom. Be really careful of your intuition today on Thursday. Um, because there's a chance that you're not seeing the big picture, that you're getting wrapped up in your own story about what's going on, and not understanding or not having faith that there is something bigger that is at play, that what you're seeing in the collective and personally is actually serving it a way that is much bigger than the personal ego. We're heading into Friday. Again, there's no big conjunctions happening on Friday, but it's a really beautiful spiritual day. It's a day where there can be an ending, like endings in what's been happening for you over the last month. Really letting go, shifting into new energy, the sense that something is wrapping up in your life. And that might be conversations you have, it might be that you have really intense dreams, which help you work through energy. So just pay attention to Friday. Time can also feel really warped on Friday based on the placement of the moon. Things from the future can be brought forward to happen now. It can feel like almost that like maybe you're jumping between timelines, like almost, or time is running really, really quickly and then really, really slow. It does really funny things when the moon is in Ravati, which is where it will be on Friday. And then we finish the week on Saturday, the 21st of June, we have the solstice, Mercury trine the nodes. It's a really nice end to the week, a really nice end to a really full on week. The solstice in the northern hemisphere will mark the longest day. In the southern hemisphere, it will be the longest night. We're at the tipping point in seasons. And this is an energy all about connecting back to the earth, all about beginnings. What is it that we want to bring forth in this next season? What is it that we want to heal? What is it that we want to understand? It's a really beautiful day on Saturday for new things, for starting new things, for bringing in new energy. So if you know you've got a project you want to start, something new that you want to do, it's a really great time to do that. So that's this week's astrology, a little bit more detailed than previous weeks. Tell me what you think if you like that format with more detail. And yeah, like I said, the Gemini new moon ritual and reading, which will be in Ardra Nakshatra, which is very stormy energy, is now live. There's details below. It includes a personal written reading. And then on the 6th of July, we'll be starting the Goddess Asteroid Embodied Astrology Mystery School. If you want to learn more about the asteroids in your chart, not just theoretically, but really connect with them, understand what they're about, what their mythology is about, what their symbols are about, and yourself build a connection with them. That is what that school is all about. We'll actually be kicking off when the sun is aligned with Sirius. It feels very special. There are places available. There are details below. Have a wonderful week.